to our webinar focused on the perspective of new and emerging leaders in senior living and aging services. I'm especially thrilled to be involved with this, like we are with many things, because of the importance of what the Vision Center places value on as it relates to that student and emerging leader perspective. That's a stakeholder group that's critically important to our success. The Vision Center is really all about enhancing and expanding the landscape of senior living and aging services programs across the country. And one of the key ingredients to that is a robust, energetic, and very qualified set of students and emerging leaders to be part of that program. We're thrilled today to have Amy Dorr, a professor in healthcare management at Metropolitan State University in Denver, agreeing to facilitate the panel today. Amy has been at Metropolitan State for 18 years. I'm sure she can't even imagine that she would have been there that long already, but she's been making a significant mark in our field. Amy's research interests are varied, focused on aging services and senior and caregiver health and the diversity issues around that group of people. She's also co-authored several case studies, and she's the co-author of a textbook called Cultural Learning in Healthcare, Recognizing and Navigating the Difference. Dr. Dorr got her PhD from Central Michigan University in Health Administration and received her master's degree in healthcare management at the University of Denver. And to do about around, she got her undergraduate at the university that she's teaching at now. So I'm sure that's always interesting for Amy to come back in a different kind of role. But I'm going to just turn it over to Amy. She's been a consummate champion in this field, and she's doing great work. And with that, Amy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Doug, and welcome everyone. I see some familiar faces, which is so nice. This is just a great opportunity for all of us today, students, those in the industry, and even those who are exploring the industry. So just a little bit more about me. Yes, I'm an alum of Metropolitan State University of Denver, and I have been teaching there for a couple decades now. And most recently, I have been able to kind of fulfill my career legacy in the sense that I have been able to start programs in aging services and long-term care. So we have the business side of aging at Metropolitan State University of Denver, their online programs. And so I have 4 different types of pathways for students if you have anyone interested. So, but that's enough about me. I'm pretty sure you would like to hear from our panel today. So we're going to get started. And the way we're doing this is we have a set of questions. And what we would like to do is get through most of the questions as we can. Of course, we want some good conversation from this also. At the end, we will have time for some Q&A from the audience, and Kiki's going to help us out there. One thing, and Kiki, I don't know this, do they have access to the chat now? I'm just curious who's here.
Yep, they should all have access to the chat. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to go ahead and type it into the chat, and we'll get to them at the end.
Okay, great. And if you could go into the chat maybe now and let us know if you're a provider, if you're a student, you know, what made you interested in this panel. I think that would be very helpful information. But we're going to get started here. So with the introductions, I've asked the students to answer one of 3 questions, and that would be how they got into senior living, or how they found this profession, or what influenced their decision to get into senior living. So with that, we're actually going to start with Olivia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Flathammer. I am a current UWEC student, majoring in healthcare administration. I also have a minor in gerontology. I was able to find this program through the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, and from there, I got just more experience. So I went in with the major, and then from there, added on to experience that involves a lot of participation in student orgs, volunteer opportunities, and the more I engage with the field, the more I end up loving it even more.
Okay, welcome, Olivia. From that, we're going to go to Elijah, and then after Elijah is Kelly.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elijah Tapp. I work at the Admiral at the Lake in Chicago, and before I lived in Pennsylvania. So I got my start in senior living out in Pennsylvania, in the area outside of Philadelphia. So I had gone to Penn State University, and like a lot of students, I knew some kind of vague ideas of what I wanted to do, but I didn't have that clear idea. And I had a great professor who helped me figure out that senior living was something I might want to look into. So I started with an internship and really enjoyed it. Took some classes the following semester to learn more about the senior living field. And I was just really intrigued, and ended up looking for an AIT program, which I did last year in Pennsylvania. And now I am out in Chicago working in resident services.
Thank you, Elijah. Hello, everyone. It's really an honor to be with you all today and talk about how we can encourage more emerging leaders in this field. I got started as a caregiver right after I graduated my undergrad, which was really, I thought, going to be a temporary position as I was waiting for another role to start. I ended up loving it. Working with older adults, changed my career trajectory that I thought I wanted to pursue a career in aging research, which is what I did for a few years until the pandemic hit. And I was working at the Marcus Institute for Aging Research at the time, which happens to be in the basement of one of Heber Senior Life's communities. I don't know if many of you are familiar with that organization. And when research shut down, I volunteered to work on the floor of the nursing home above us and just got really inspired by leadership, and which sent me to Virginia, where I completed my master's in health administration in May. I'm now working at Pinnacle Living as a director of strategic initiatives and really enjoying it.
Okay, with that, we are going to wrap up the panel by Shelby introducing herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shelby Coven. I am a third-year undergraduate student at the Fairbanks School of Public Health at IU Indianapolis. I'm majoring in health services management, and I have a minor in graphic design. I am the Vision Center social media graphic design intern, and the Vision Center is actually what drew me into senior living. Through my time at the Vision Center, I was able to be heavily involved with the symposium that was held in June. And being able to hear all of the panelists in the field and hear them talk about where they think the field is going, how it's growing, was super inspiring to me. And yeah, so through this internship, that's really what drew me into this field.
So I have a quick question. I know we asked everyone who is attending to please go into the chat and introduce themselves and where they're from. I know I have a couple students here, which is wonderful. And the question did come about to explain what an AIT is. And I know that's industry language. So could someone on the panel maybe walk through, especially someone who's either doing that now or has done that in the past?
I can start. So AIT stands for Administration and Training. So through my program at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, they offer a full senior year residency, which is an AIT training. But beyond that, I'm sure Elijah can elaborate a little bit. There are opportunities for AIT training outside of university spectrums, and I'll turn it over to him so he can figure out how to phrase it better than me.
Sure. So, yeah, administrator in training is abbreviated to AIT. In Pennsylvania, I believe there are about 10 different ways you can get a nursing home administration license. And one of them is to complete an AIT program in conjunction with some other coursework and then an exam that you take. But the AIT program is, as Olivia said, it's a field experience program where you're working with a licensed nursing home administrator as a preceptor, and you get to rotate through different departments of a skilled nursing facility so that you have an idea of how operations work throughout those departments to prepare for taking the exams.
One thing that I think is important to add is that the AIT, especially the availability of AITs differs throughout everything, every single state, but also the requirements to get your nursing home administrator license differs in every state. We'll come back to the AIT here probably later in our discussion, but that leads us to kind of a perfect pivot point for the next question. And for all of those who are wanting to support students, this is really probably a question you've been wondering about, and that is how can provider organizations and educational institutions better support those interested in this career path. So with that, we're going to actually go with Kelly first, since she's in the field at the moment.
Yeah, it's a really important question. I'm sure many of you on this call are familiar with how difficult it is to attract AITs and for AITs to find placement. So I think that's a good place to start, is take a chance on young people, on emerging leaders, and help them get their AITs. It may not lead to, you know, long-term career development with that individual, but it's for the development of the field overall. I think we all have a responsibility to ensure this field continues for many, many years to come, especially as we get through the silver tsunami that is already beginning to hit us. I think for those who are, you know, maybe not able to take on an AIT, it is a really big investment. Just summer internships, Leading Age has a wonderful summer enrichment program. Many other organizations, universities have summer internships, and it's a way to get people exposed to the field, which is really, you know, what I encourage most of all. Just exposure is what we need. How many people on this call can say they fell into this field, and what was that moment at which they fell in? So I think more opportunities just for early exposure and taking a chance on people is where we can begin.
Thank you, Kelly, for getting us started. Elijah, can you add to that?
I would totally agree with the exposure idea. I think for me, there was a period of time where I was interested in senior living because I had a clear path for the first time. So I was looking at these options in the field, and I kind of could see that if I take this course and then I do this AIT program and I study for this exam, then I can end up with a license that will give me opportunities to then work in this field. And I was intrigued by that, but it wasn't until I actually worked in a facility where I got to interact with the residents and the staff that I really was sure that it's what I wanted to do. And I think the relationships and the fact that in senior living, you get to know residents and you know them for years sometimes, and you get to know their families and really be part of their life. And I think that's a huge honor. So along with exposure, I would say any opportunities where you can have younger people or people newer to this field actually interacting with residents, working on projects and doing things where they can really get involved and see what it's like to not only work in this environment, but develop leadership skills and do problem solving. I think that was really vital for how I figured out this is what I wanted to stick with.
Thank you. Okay, so we're talking a little bit about passion here and making sure that we have the right fit for our personal selves. And then, you know, Elijah talking about making friends and getting to know the residents, that really rings true to many people, including myself. And so I've had several best friends over the years, and it's been something that led me into the field. So with that, I am going to ask Shelby to just kind of chime in. Are you feeling the same?
Yeah, so I feel like I do have a little bit of a different perspective on not just the senior living field, but healthcare in general. With having a minor in graphic design, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure that achieving a master's or an AIT is something that I'm going to pursue. I am very open to my options right now, not really sure what the future holds for me, but I know that I'm passionate about healthcare and I know that I'm passionate about senior living. So I think that you know, to try to support those interested in the field, I feel personally one of the most important thing is to highlight mid-level positions within the field that can be attained by those who maybe don't want to be administrators. I know that within my program with peers that I know, you know, they are interested in, you know, senior living or other, you know, fields within healthcare, but they feel like administrator is the only way to enter the program. And that's exactly how I felt prior to joining the Vision Center. But, you know, now I've been able to work on things that aren't administrator focused, but you know, I can still be a part of the field and learn so much. But I feel like really highlighting that you don't have to be an administrator. You know, there's so much career growth in senior living. There's so many areas that we need people in that aren't just all administrators. So I feel like growth in internships too, specifically in those mid-level positions as well, because, you know, I know peers who are, you know, losing interest because they're like, well, I don't want to be an administrator. The only option for me to get involved is to be one. So that's just not an option for me. So I think that promoting that there are other options for you to still be involved in this field is really important.
Thank you, Shelby. And you're so true. And I think that's why we're seeing new program development. And because it used to be if you wanted to be in the field, it was all clinical. So spreading and expanding those pathways. So Olivia, can you chime in?
I'll do my best. I think everyone did such a great job talking about engagement and different ways that people find the field. For me, I would say making an effort to have volunteer opportunities or bringing residents and the senior living to the community itself, beyond just having opportunities for people to come to you. I would say that it's very much beneficial to have exposure outside of the actual facility itself, and then bringing in opportunities that way. A lot of people that I know have gotten into the HCAD specific program over here through volunteering and through other experiences. So just having that kind of aspect of things is also a really interesting way of expanding the field and expanding people's interest in senior living.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask our panel is when you completed internships, were they paid internships? If you can unmic and you can just kind of let us know a little bit about your experiences. I think this is what our provider organizations are needing to hear. And actually on Monday, I will be giving a presentation with my students at Leading Age. And this is a very strong focus. And so I would love to learn more. Kelly.
Yeah, so my summer internship and my AIT were paid. I mean, I'll just be honest, I was not willing to take an unpaid internship for a year or longer. You know, I was grateful that my program has a residency requirement, as many masters do, and I kind of leaned on them. That they do require their residencies to be paid, although I had some communities, you know, say, can we work with you? Can we, you know, make it work? You know, with housing and things like that, it's just a barrier to people. We know that costs have increased in these last 4 years, particularly, and we just can't make it work. So I would challenge you all to find a way to pay people to explore this field, enter this field. I mean, how many people may skip over this field because they have a family to take care of, or they're in school and they're trying to make life work, and they can find opportunities paid elsewhere. And if that is a wonderful person that you want working for an organization, what real cost have you lost? Or, you know, benefit have you lost to your organization?
That's a great example. Olivia.
Yeah, same thing that Kelly went through. I am completing my residency program next year, so I've already gotten placed and everything with that, but that one also is a paid internship. It's a little bit different since I'm going through more of a university esque training program, but yes, I agree with everything Kelly said. That was one of the very much interesting things about this program compared to some of the other trainings that different majors have. And I feel like that's definitely a selling point beyond just everything that you can do in the senior living field.
And are these all at the master's level? Did anyone have a paid internship in the undergrad level?
Yeah, mine's an undergrad paid internship. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Because we do have different institutions here as far as the universities and colleges. For example, MSU Denver is more of a non-traditional. We are a commuter campus, although we have a lot of apartments around us now. We have no official dorms, so it's not the traditional university. And we are struggling with finding paid internships in Colorado. So that's why I am so eager to hear from the panel and hearing later from our audience members to see what we can do to maybe change this experience. So with that, I am going to move on to the next question. And this is kind of like the fun question here. It's like, what excites you the most about your future in this field? And we'd just love to hear, now that we know what got you here, what are you excited about in the future? And to get us going, we're going to start with Olivia.
Yeah, so I am a student, and as I was saying, I do have an AIT placement for next year. So through my undergrad program, they offer a set list of sites that are interested in working with students and providing that AIT through university. And in that experience, that was this past summer for me. So the summer after your sophomore year, going into your junior year, if you're on a 4-year plan, you would go around and tour and interview at a bunch of sites that you were interested in. And the part that was just really exciting to me was all of the differences that you could see and how you can tailor your experience to what you're looking for, specifically in an AIT or eventually in your future career. So that was what interested and excited me. I was having the opportunity to look at a bunch of different continuums of care and a lot of different ways that people run their facilities.
Hey, Kelly, can you add to that?
Yeah, I think technology is a big one. We have a lot of new and exciting technologies just around the corner, from, robots in our dining rooms to remote monitoring technologies. I just learned about geofencing that we can set up around campus to catch anyone who may be wandering. I think there are just incredible things that are coming out to support this field. I'm also grateful to be a part of Pinnacle Living, which is an organization that's growing. We just acquired 2 new communities, and my current role is assisting with that transition. So I think growing communities, growing organizations, acquisitions and mergers, and everything that will come out of that, I think is exciting as we need to adapt and change for this incoming baby boomer generation. So I'm excited by what the next 5, 10, 20, 40 years of my career hold.
Right. Shelby.
Yeah, I feel like senior living is technology is something to be so excited about. I think in this field, you are our residents, and I just feel like everything involved with it can be so heavily impacted by technology and the growth that we're seeing in the field. And I think also, just for me personally, something that's just exciting. I know that I touched on this at the beginning, but I was able to be, heavily involved with the symposium and just attending. And I hadn't thought a whole lot about senior living prior to my internship with the Vision Center. I'm in a very hospital-based program, and they don't start to really introduce you into other fields of healthcare until your senior year. So as a 3rd year, I don't have a whole lot of exposure to other elements or fields of healthcare other than hospital, which I already knew kind of going into I wasn't super drawn to. So this internship, being able to get involved with senior living and attending the symposium, learning things I didn't know about the field, and hearing, those who are in it, how they feel like it's going, where it's growing, technology, things, I just feel like there's a lot of career growth, and technology can, you know, help with that growth as well. I just feel like there's a lot of things to be excited about within the future of this field.
Thank you, Elijah.
Yeah, really great points by everyone so far. And I think I would say, although I started out with the AIT to administrator track, in the last few years that I've been working on getting that license, my goals and my perspective on what's possible have grown so much more than I expected, where I did kind of enter the field with this idea that you get your administrator license and that's sort of the option for working in the field. But since I've actually completed that license, I've become really interested in more than just working with skilled nursing. And now I'm in a community that has independent living, assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing. So I get to still use the knowledge that I have from that training, and I get to be in an environment where the regulations come into play. But I also now am learning about assisted living regulations and memory care best practices and even independent living innovations. There's a lot of really cool technology and really cool resident engagement technology that's coming out right now. And I'm excited to see how I can be involved in building some new solutions for how we actually interact with our residents. I think now is a really cool time to be part of this field because we're just starting to bounce back from the pandemic, and there's a lot of really interesting things coming up. So I think regardless of your clinical skills or your interest in administration, if you have an interest in marketing or design or so many different things that can come into play, this is such a great time to get involved and consider a career in senior living.
So Elijah, you kind of hinted at something that we actually talked about in one of our meetings, and that is more on-ramps for students and more middle positions. And we had a conversation around that. And that is something I try to explain to my students is there's so much that you can do in aging services. So Kelly, can you talk a little bit about those, like kind of like what's the definition of a middle position? And what are some of those beginning positions that students who have the undergrad who want to get started? So we'd love to hear from you, especially with the new work you're doing in your communities.
Yeah, and it is something that I think a lot about because I've completed my master's, I've completed my AIT, I have this shiny new license that I want to use. There are not many organizations who are going to let you jump right into an administrator or an executive director position. So what does the middle position look like? And they're not easy to find. Like a director level position doesn't always quite fit the interest, skills, or background of the student. Not all organizations are large enough to take on an assistant or associate executive director. So I think it's something that our field needs to think about. How are we going to grow our leaders so that when they are in an executive director position, when it's time, will they be ready? What are we doing to set emerging leaders up for longer term success? For me, I think it was serendipitous. I'm grateful to work for Pinnacle Living. I completed my AIT at a time when this amazing acquisition was just getting underway, and so that's what I'm working on now, and it's giving me the opportunity to get experience and in a broad range of departments and really get to do things I never imagined doing. So I think for other organizations and people on the call today, thinking creatively about where emerging leaders can fit into your organization, it may be a role you've never had before.
Sorry, I was taking notes. One of the most common questions I have from students in advising is, well, what kind of job can I look for as I graduate? And especially if we have students for really the first time in history who are intentionally going through programs in long-term care or senior living or aging services. So, what does that mean as they, continue their educational path? Elijah, do you have some suggestions for maybe those on-ramps that organizations might want to consider for students?
Yeah, so the role that I'm in now, I think is a really great example of one of those entry-level positions because I did get my license, but like Kelly was saying, it's really unrealistic that you're going to have that license and then actually get an offer for a position to be an administrator right off the bat. Because that experience in this field is really important. And there's a lot of nuance to just get experience with. So I think after I completed the license, I knew that I was going to be looking for a position that would give me the experience I needed to then one day use that license. And right now I'm in a role called community coordinator, which is cool because it includes so many different things and it kind of allows for flexibility and growth. But I'm working with the residents in all levels of care in my community, and I work on a team with social workers, other people with administration licenses. So we do some quality improvement, a lot of resident relations and communications, and it's given me a chance to really develop my skills just as a person working, because an AIT program isn't the same as a full-time job. So this transition to now be figuring out my style and the way that I get my work done and how I interact with my team, while I'm also learning a lot about this industry and being able to be part of an organization that is looking at all of the levels of care and all of the things that are on the horizon in the industry. So I think, positions that have the word coordinator in the title can be really good to look for, or, things where you're going to be reporting to someone who probably has a license or has some kind of authority. So you can have that development and growth experience working with that person, but still learn to have some autonomy and freedom to figure out your personal style.
I love that. And one thing I want to add to this is an area of research for me, and probably because it's a concern for me for my generation, is, after we have the baby boomer generation moving through, we have Generation X, and we do not have the same resources. We do not have the same desires. And the area that we're considering more is aging in place. And so that's where I put a lot of my research efforts in. And with that is the direct connection and the need for more home and community-based services. And I am curious what you know about those services and if your communities actually integrate that with what you are learning and what they are offering. Maybe we'll start with Kelly and then go to Olivia.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think we just need to be open to listening and adapting to our changing to the changing needs and desires of those who are entering this field or considering moving into one of our communities. I'd love to hear from one of our other panelists.
Yeah, so through my undergrad program, they do a lot of full spectrum learning. So we learn about everything from SNFs to home and community-based services. We are working towards figuring out ways to get involved more so in home and community-based services. But I feel like that's an emerging field, and beyond the baby boomer generation, that would be something that everybody is more so interested in. And I feel like having a shift and having a change in attitudes towards living at home versus finding a facility to live in is something that should be studied and would be an interesting way of moving forward.
Shelby or Elijah, do you have anything to add?
I think I definitely agree that opportunities to see the full continuum and not just within facilities, but also the home environment is really important. And I know for myself, just working in a skilled nursing environment, I learned a lot about home care and the services that people need, because often when someone's leaving a rehab stay, they go home and they need additional support. And I'm really interested in how the field is going to change as we move forward, as aging in place becomes more of a preference. Um, I'm curious to see, if the regulatory environment will shift at all to make it possible for us to do totally new things with how different levels of care interact and how people move through the continuum. So I think it's exciting to be in the field and anticipating some of those changes.
Thank you. Shelby, what do you think?
Like I said, I do have kind of a unique perspective, as my only experience within senior living is through what I've done with the Vision Center. So with this specific question, I mean, I, even as a panelist, like, I feel like this is a learning opportunity for me to kind of get, input on what's going on within the field and where it's going and stuff like that.
So with this, as a learning opportunity, how do you envision the role of leaders evolving in the industry over the next couple of decades? Especially knowing that we are going to see a shift.
I think I can take this one. I feel like we definitely need to prepare for the oncoming increase in people entering our senior living locations, simply because we have a lot of baby boomers that are reaching that age now. And I feel like something that leaders should be prepared for and definitely know that's coming is accommodating everybody. And that's something that's definitely going to be a focus. But beyond that, how much of our spaces will be dedicated to baby boomers, and then beyond that, are we expanding to accommodate for them? And then after that wave, what do we do if more people are choosing to age at home? So just having a different fluctuation and having that, yes, we have to accommodate for everybody coming in at this point, but also accommodating for what comes after and seeing all those changes. So I'm very excited, as somebody who's entering the field in the next few years, to see how that all runs out.
Thank you. Kelly.
Yeah, something that I've been thinking about as an emerging leader is not just how we will treat residents in the future, but also how we'll treat our team members. We're facing a major nursing shortage, caregiver shortage across the board, and how are we going to attract not just administrators and graphic designers, Shelby, but other people to this field that we need to run our communities. I did a project in my master's on what does living wage look like and how far off are we as a field from paying living wage. So I think that's also an important part of leadership in this field, that it's not just our residents, it's everyone else that we have an impact on a daily basis.
Exactly. And one thing to keep in mind, especially for the providers, just because we have a shift in the generations, that will occur in the next few decades, and the desire to age in place doesn't mean that they will not be in a community. Aging in place means what you call home. So it's more of a difference of trying to have those resources and the availability for how we define home will likely change. So with that, we have one more question before we open it up. So I would like to know what advice the panel has for those who are interested in entering the field, or those who are in the field but would like to expand their role in the field. So Elijah, would you mind going first for this one, and then we'll go to Shelby?
Sure. So I think for people who are interested in entering this field, the best advice I could give is to be as flexible as you're able to be. And that doesn't mean compromise on your needs or the things that you know about yourself and what a role for you looks like. But consider things that you might not have wanted to do and consider that your interests might change. I think just saying yes to opportunities has been one of the most important parts of how I've ended up where I am now. And I'm really happy to be at an organization where in my role, I'm really fulfilled by what I do with the residents, but I also feel like the culture at my organization is really a great fit and I'm happy to work with this team. So just saying yes and taking that chance, moving to a different state to come do this position, and being open to starting a life in a new city, that was a big part of how I think I ended up finding a role that was such a good fit for me. So flexibility is key. And I think for employers and leaders, probably the same thing, but maybe in a different way, but flexibility and accommodation, and tapping into the values that people coming into the field are working for, because it's not just about wanting a career and wanting stability. I think people come into this field, especially now, because they want to do a job that has a lot of purpose. And regardless of what level that is that someone's coming into, even if it's the direct caregiver level, I think it's really vital that leaders understand what is the value that matters to that person working in that role and how can they give that person an opportunity to fulfill that value and feel that their work has meaning to them.
Thank you. Shelby?
So I have two separate pieces of advice. My first one would be for providers, leaders. I think that there's something really important about highlighting impact within this field. I personally switched my major to health services management from a clinical major. And over half of my peers that I'm very close with also came from nursing, dental hygiene, pre-med, something like that, where they were passionate about healthcare, but realized, clinical was not the way to go. And I know that a lot of my peers feel like, while they can still be involved with healthcare within this field, they lose that aspect of, I feel like I'm hands-on affecting somebody's life. I'm missing that fulfillment that I would get from working clinical. I feel like senior living is an opportunity for those of us who wanted that hands-on experience and to see the difference that you're making to still be able to do that. And so I think highlighting impact is something that's so important when trying to, reaching out about internships, finding new employees, trying to get students, emerging leaders interested in the field. And for students, just from my personal experience, if you're not sure what you want to do, or you are passionate about senior living, but don't, necessarily know if you want to be an administrator or don't know if there's a spot for you, I think of all healthcare fields, there is so much growth in senior living. And just even within the conversation that we've been having about the difference between the needs of, the baby boomer generation and the Gen X generation. Like there's so much room for growth. And I just think, there is a spot for you in senior living if it's something that you're passionate about, and especially if you're passionate about seeing impact and really making a difference, senior living is the place for you.
Okay, Olivia.
I would definitely personally say that having experiences, going from the student aspect of things, having experiences in actual senior living locations, whether that be in SNFs, whether that be in assisted livings, has really kept me in the field and kept my engagement early on before I started learning more about the field and learning about all of the opportunities that it has. That's what's definitely kept me engaged. So getting out into the community, volunteering, seeing what you can do in your own senior living opportunity, or seeing opportunities that you can have in senior living in your community. That goes for providers as well, seeing if you can get student engagement in that. There was a question that came in that kind of relates to what I was going to say, which I would suggest getting involved in some sort of healthcare membership organization. So I am part of the American College of Healthcare Administrators, so ACHCA, and we have a lot of engagement beyond that in AHCA. So getting involved in that leads to opportunities like mentorship programs and different networking events. So I definitely suggest beyond that, getting involved in something like that so you can see more of the provider side and you can network beyond.
Yeah, so if I could give any advice to students, it would be don't be afraid to ask questions. Whether that's reaching out to an organization and seeing if you could shadow for a day, or talking with a senior leader and asking a question about what projects they're working on or something that you're passionate about. You never know what project or even position that could lead you to. And for providers, I think my advice for you all to consider when working with emerging leaders is don't be afraid to tap into whatever skills or experiences or passions that they have personally. In my summer internship, I happened to mention, my background is in research. I like digging into data. And that led into a project of creating a data dashboard for the organization to use that pulls in data and all of our different vendors into kind of a one-stop shop. And that's been time saving and fruitful for the organization. It was just something that I thought was interesting. So that would be my advice to you all.
And Kelly, I think you also are very much a proponent of those paid internships. So going back full circle here.
Yep, definitely paid internships. I'll say
Yes.
it again, paid internships, paid AITs. It will only benefit you. I really truly believe that.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're actually going to open it up to our audience, and you can type a message in. I think we can also, if you would like to just speak up, you can do that. I want to back up a little bit to a question that was asked by a student, and it says, where can I find out more about certifications or license that would be beneficial for the undergrad students to get them prepared for this industry? So what would you recommend for those who are, jumping in kind of new right now?
I can start off on this one. I think an AIT program or something in administration can be a lot to take on. But I think there are a lot of opportunities to become a licensed caregiver, even if you're not thinking about nursing. It's a job that is always needed, and it's one of the most vital jobs in a community. You'll get to know the residents and you'll get to know what it really takes to take care of people. And I think you'll just kind of keep that appreciation no matter what you do afterwards. So if anything, I would encourage anyone to consider becoming a CNA. If you haven't thought about it, it's not for everyone, but I think it's a really rewarding thing to do, and it doesn't take too long to get licensed. So it's a good way to kind of get started.
I hear that often, and I see that often with students. They will tend to go towards at least trying to do a CNA or a QMAP or something of that nature. So, okay, what other questions do we have? We do have one, question about the associations. So what other associations do you belong to, or did you belong to as a student?
Yeah, I touched on ACHCA and AHCA. Sorry, guys. But beyond that, there's the WHCA and YCAL and everything like that. Obviously, involvement in different, I'm speaking from Wisconsin, there's involvement in a variety of different healthcare membership organizations. Obviously, everybody here has connections to the Vision Center, which is doing great work as well. So just doing some research on your state specifically, or the state that you want to potentially get an AIT or a nursing home licensure in would be very much beneficial. I would suggest doing it for the networking opportunities, the connections, and all the great people and things that you can learn through it.
Yeah, I would also put in a plug for Leading Age, which is an ACA's not-for-profit counterpart, is another great organization that's doing great work and has opportunities for students to get involved.
And one thing is that Leading Age usually has, or typically has their own state chapter. So you can be part of the national Leading Age, but also your state Leading Age. And just a little secret or little tip is that if you do not see information on student memberships, especially maybe with the state level, just ask. And usually they're just blown away, and they will definitely help students get involved. So Shelby, Elijah, what about you? What are you participating in?
So I think, like Amy just said, if you don't see something about student membership, it's definitely worth asking, because I've been part of all of these organizations that have been mentioned, and I'm working more with Leading Age right now, being in a not-for-profit community. Another thing beyond just asking about student membership that I would recommend to everyone is ask about student opportunities once you are a member. You can often reach out and say, I'm a student, or I'm an intern and I'm doing this program and I'd really like some more exposure, and you'll find a way to go to a conference, or get involved in opportunities where you can go learn from people all over the country in this field. So I think just reaching out and expressing your interest and being confident that there's something for you there, it's huge.
So Amy, I had a question come in through a direct message, and somebody had asked, as a young college student, what can we do to prepare ourselves to get an HE with a good organization?
Can you repeat that very last part? Your mic went
Yes,
out just a little bit.
sorry. As a young college student, what can I do to prepare myself in order to get a good AIT with an organization?
That's a great question, because if you maybe heard, at least from Olivia's example, planning is one of the suggestions, right? So Olivia, do you want to expand on the steps you took and how maybe students can prepare?
Yeah, mine is very specific since I went through my university. So I don't really have very much experience looking for an AIT independently. But what I did through the residency program at my undergrad program is I did a lot of research prior to touring, and they did offer, and I did reach out to do tours prior to committing to a site, which is definitely a good choice, because some things you feel like you'll be really connected to, but you won't truly know what you like and what you don't until you experience the company culture and you see it in person. If that's not an option, you can also do, I would suggest a video call or some sort of phone call, just so you can get a little bit of perspective of what your preceptor is like, what their precepting style is, just to make sure that you get the best experience out of it.
I would love to answer that question. So I went to VCU, and like other students on this call, it's very hospital based. Actually, I was the first in its history who wanted to do anything long-term care. So I really had to go out and make the opportunities happen. So I was connected with Leading Age and just started networking as much as possible. So pretty much every other Friday, I was trying to be at a community, talking with senior leaders, getting understanding of what the field is, what I liked and what I didn't like. And those shadowing opportunities led to other opportunities to meet others, and that's how I landed my AIT. So I would say network, network, network. You never know where one connection may lead you.
Okay. Kiki, do you have any other questions? Otherwise, I would like to actually see if the audience could give advice to our students.
Yeah, we can open it up for that.
Okay. I know that Leslie posted in the chat a little bit of information about her organization. Is anyone willing to give some advice to not only our students on the panel, but our students who are actually attending? Because I do know we have a handful. Nope. Doug, I'm going to ask you to step in because I know you have been itching to say a few things here. You just have to unmute yourself now. We're allowing you to unmute.
I'm just listening and learning and taking lots of notes. I just, whoever ends up with each of you, I know that a couple of you have already gotten employment, but I'm sure the other students are going to be certainly have lots of opportunities ahead of them. What I would say is, in kind of closing, because I know that starting on time and ending on time helps your reviews. What I will tell you is that the paid field experience is a strong proposition for the Vision Center. We have a value proposition that clearly outlines the benefits that provider organizations get from that investment as well. There's many organizations now that are developing bench strength and seeing a really good ROI on their investment in training and developing people for the future. I would also say that I really like the notion of going on the broad career spectrum. I don't know if I'm going to get this right or not. There's an organization in home care and hospice. I think it's the National Alliance for Care at Home. I don't know if I got that right, Andrea, but you know, one of the things that I would say is that we're training people for the broad spectrum of senior living, which includes housing, senior housing, which hasn't been talked much about. There's a lot of need, and I think that we're trying to get people positioned for a long, productive, purpose-filled career. And many people will find options that they're going to find incredibly interesting for them. And I guess the last thing I would say is that I think it's upon the Vision Center and others, we are launching not till beginning of the year, a program called the Student Ambassadors. And that's going to be allowing us to kind of make sure that students across the country are exposed to lots of different opportunities that can be available for them, whether it be conferences or state associations or other leadership development programs. I mean, I just think that there's a lot of providers, a lot of people in this field that are really interested in making sure that not only we get good talent, but we also are able to retain that talent in the future. And I think that does take a step back for organizations to say, how can we make room for someone that has energy, passion, and wants to have a purpose-filled career taking care of people's parents, grandparents, and friends. It's a significant issue for this country, and it's something that we have to dial up. And I really, really appreciate all the contributions of the students and the chat questions. And I think this is the kind of stuff that is important for us to listen to you and really hear from you, that helps us rethink some of the trajectories that we have available now. I can't thank you, Amy, enough. Did a great job facilitating. It's always hard to kind of keep people on track. You met the mark, and I certainly appreciate that. I know that there will be stuff that Kiki will send out afterwards, thanking everybody for being on the call and the webinar, but I also want you to know that the Vision Center is always open to working with anybody that has an interest in moving this needle forward with expanding universities across the country's interest in this very, very critical field for this aging demographic that we have coming. So, and I don't even know if I should say coming, it's here. We are already seeing kind of the beginnings of stuff that needs to be done. And I can't thank our sponsors and our organizations of the Vision Center enough. And lastly, I do have to kind of give a little shout out to the person I work with, my partner in crime, Kiki Bashorner. She does a phenomenal job managing multiple things. And once again, you did a great job with this. Thank you so much, Kiki. You work behind the scenes, but you're such a positive influence on what we're doing. So anyway, with that, I will say thank you very much. We appreciate you attending. I hope you learned something. And for any of you that have follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to us in whatever shape or form you want to, and we can maybe either answer the question, tell you we don't know the answer, but we'll steer you in the right direction. And I mean, I'm actually looking at David because you had a bunch of questions in the chat and they're not gonna all be answered. So thank you very much, everybody.